Victoria, we have a problem. A very big problem that affects you, me, and everyone in between. But much like this puzzle, the problem has a solution. At this very moment in Victoria, the youth justice system is in crisis. You'd have to be living under a rock not to have noticed that our headlines are dominated by Victorian youth who invade homes, violently assault people, steal cars, and smash up detention centres. Or the alarming statistic that shows that the City of Melbourne has recorded over a 20% increase in offences committed by youth in the last 12 months. It is blatantly obvious that the current criminal justice measures are failing to protect the public. But what is less obvious is that the justice system is also failing young people who find themselves on the wrong side of the law. So what can we do about it? My stance is clear. Prevention is better than cure. However, I staunchly believe, regardless of your age, that if you do the crime, you do the time. Where my opinion differs from hardcore conservatives is that I do not accept that young criminals belong in bail and prison. Yes, their sentence needs to fit the felony, but as Daniel Andrews said, an incarceration-only approach is simply an apprenticeship for a life in crime. Young offenders need to be given tools to turn their lives around. But what tools am I talking about? To answer this question, we need to really understand who these young offenders are, what their background is, and what leads them to breaking the law. The Crime Statistics Agency data shows that over 25,000 offences were committed by youth in Victoria over the past year. The Youth Parole Board figures identify that of these 25,000 offences, 63% were committed by juveniles who have been victims of abuse or neglect. If we break this data down even further, we begin to understand something very important. You see, 2/3 of these young criminals were aged 16 or younger, and almost 1/4 were aged 14 and under, with some offenders launching their criminal debut at age 10. A criminal at age 10. When I was 10, I was playing Lego and tucked up in bed by 7. There is no doubt that reprehensible family situations are a major cause of juvenile delinquency. Sadly, under Victoria's current child protection system, children commonly don't enter permanent state care until they are over 9 years of age. And by this time, a lot of the damage is done. Bad patterns of aggression have developed from poor adult role models. Education has been neglected and a criminal tendency cultivated. Anglicare Victoria Chief Paul McDonald said as a result of late intervention, by age 16, half of those who left state care were either in jail, unemployed, pregnant, or homeless within 12 months. Obviously, this demonstrates that these teenagers are overwhelmingly poorly equipped with independent life skills and are thus far more vulnerable to resorting to a life of crime to survive. Come on, it's a matter of ethics and common sense. All abused kids should be permanently removed from negligent parents and placed with caring families. Then, and only then, will these kids have a chance to not only avoid a criminal future, but have what all kids deserve, a safe upbringing in a good and loving home. With 63% of the puzzle solved, we now need to address the other 37% who do not fit the victims of abuse category. Information revealed from Melbourne's Youth Crime Summit show that a very large percentage of these young offenders had a low education and struggled to find employment. For them, it's easier to steal than to earn, and it's easier to deal drugs than to deal with Centrelink. If you have poor literacy skills, for example, it would be very difficult to apply for a job, and thus it probably would be easier to steal than to earn. And from what I've heard, you need a degree in rocket science to understand those Centrelink forms. As respected adolescent psychologist Dr. Michael Carr-Gregg stated, all experts agree on one thing: education is the answer. Endorsing his sentiment, youth worker Les Twentyman said, "We need to keep kids in the classroom, not in the courtroom." To achieve this, he said we need outreach youth workers in every primary school, reinforcing the idea that early prevention and education are essential. Of course, we cannot fool ourselves. Even if we do implement early intervention strategies,